My name is Christelle. It's a French name, but I'm from Lebanon. And I'm talking to you now from Nairobi, from Kenya, where I'm based, working with UN Habitat. I think before I jump into how our public space program works into creating collective public spaces and engaging community and the role of participation, I'd like to give like a small overview of our role as UN Habitat. Maybe some of you have heard of us, but maybe some have not. Just to kickstart that, we are an agency that supports local governments and national governments to create sustainable development and make sure their cities are sustainably urbanized. And we work in very rapidly urbanized cities across the world, mainly in the global south, which might be different from your context. But we do support also, let's say, drawing from case studies from the global north into creating normative outputs and so on. And with urbanization comes lots of value, socially, economically, environmental value, when it's properly, let's say, managed, or it's properly planned. And if not, then we're faced with many urbanization challenges. And this is our area of work. We're working in many contexts where there's social inequality and spatial inequality or divide. There's lots of slums and informal settlements. We work around natural disaster, post-conflict situations, safety and protection, but also exclusion and lack of participation. And we don't just address the challenges, but we also support governments in taking advantage of the opportunities that their cities offer, because oftentimes they're not aware of how they can shift those challenges into positive opportunities. And as I said, we're the UN agency responsible for human settlements and sustainable towns. And we have been recognized by member states over the years to create UN Habitat 40 years ago as a center of, let's say, excellence for urban planning. And in 2012, we upgraded it into a program, which is now called the Human Settlements Program. And our mandate is really to develop larger, let's say, programs and setting norms for sustainable urbanization. In 2015, the SDG, which is kind of the sets of goals of how we want our future to look like, included one goal dedicated to SDG 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, where UN Habitat is the custodian and is the one facilitating the cooperation among all agencies at the UN system-wide level. And it was really the first time that we see kind of in development history that urbanization is seen as a force for good, which was really, really nice. Following that, in 2016, in the new urban agenda, there was the new urban agenda that followed, which is really our blueprint of how to implement the SDG 11 and how to advance this agenda on urbanization. And what you see here, the targets, they are targeting many aspects of urbanization, like mobility, but also there's one component on SDG 11.7, which talks about public spaces and the importance and the extent of how we should engage communities and make sure public spaces are inclusive. So again, member states really reaffirm that habitat is a focal point for sustainable urbanization and human settlements. And we really work closely with governments to advance their agenda, support them, building capacities, and so on. I just want to highlight a few of the like two texts from the new urban agenda that, and there's many actually. Public space has been acknowledged in this document really well. There's like the importance of quality public spaces has been repeated several times in the agenda, which is nice to see, but also the importance of participation and promoting civic engagement to make sure people have a sense of ownership and belonging in their environment. And when we say public space, we just don't mean like a beautiful space that is designed by a star architect or whatever, but it's more like looking at indicators of how safe, how inclusive, how accessible, how green, and how of a good quality is a public space. And that means when we have this inclusivity, when we have those people on board, we're creating areas for social interaction, we're creating areas for exchange and cultural expression, and we're creating a space for people to come together and from wide diversity of people to come together and exchange culture and dialogue. Sorry, I have to sip water. And as you said, public space is not just like a space where people come, but it has really an impact on the wider aspects of the city. It can really improve accessibility by creating more walkable, more safe pedestrian spaces, reducing dependency of car. It can really improve environment by absorbing city carbon emission, and so on. It can promote health by increasing physical activities or enhancing safety and security. And we've seen now with COVID-19, like really the importance of those spaces as kind of a spaces for just you know, from after the lockdown, spaces for people to just like go out and be there and escape all the stress things that comes with this pandemic. But also there are places to build local economy, supporting small scale entrepreneurship, supporting informal vendors to come, supporting maybe waste pickers to be involved. And I know maybe this is a bit far from the reality in your context, but I'm just drawing upon my experience throughout like globally, basically. But it can also build social cohesion and inclusion and nurture sense of community by fostering the sense of belonging and encouraging communities' creativity. And this can only happen if we have active participation. One can create a space that provides good environmental quality, that can promote health, but if people are not engaged from the beginning, if they don't feel sense of ownership, if it doesn't improve their social and cultural interaction, then we risk that these spaces are not vibrant, are not accessible, and therefore are of a bad quality in a way. And this is where like the participation aspects is kind of a core element in our work. You see some example from Global North. I think oftentimes people always draw case studies from the Global from Global South. Often people, draw example from Global North, but I think it's also nice to kind of be inspired of what's happening in the Global South and how people are also using different models of engagement that might inspire other people as well. And so participation is key because, I mean, who else know the city besides the citizen and the people living in those environments, and who knows what they need and their priorities more than them in a way. And when people really understand the problem, they'll be more willingly ready to act and come together and solve it, which can bring lasting change and improvement and a better quality of life. Often case when we have people from the onset engaged, this can lead to better, let's say, maintenance of public space. And again, bringing the sense of ownership, making sure what they need is reflected. And in the new urban agenda, member states have really urged UN Habitat to continue its work on providing capacity development and tools for national governments and local governments to design and make sure their plan is inclusive and including the different groups of society within the city. And so we in the Global Public Space Program, which was created in 2012, developed a series of tools that can really help engage the community and making sure their opinions are included in the design processes. We often start working on a city level. I know many people just sometimes engage people at just like a pocket space and making sure what they want in this particular area. But we believe that in order for a city to be inclusive, there's the need of assessment and engagement at the city level. And this is where we use the citywide public space assessment, where with the community and by the community, where we're assessing the public realm. So we understand how the city is functioning, what are their needs at the city level. And this can lead to strategies on public space, which we, together with the community and the local government and experts work together to define those strategies and make sure they're like targeting the needs of the community. And this is a really nice way also, and it can help local government to know how to direct their investment to priority areas that are really critical for communities to change. But we also work on the site itself and its 400-meter walkable radius, where we believe anyone should have access to a 5-minute walking distance, open space at least, following WHO as well recommendation. And we include also communities in actual project upgrading, and I'm gonna touch upon that after. We also have the Her City Toolbox platform, which is a collaboration with the Swedish Innovation Agency. And this has a set of digital tools to better engage women and girls in the planning decision. And we really see the value of it now. It's gonna be launched in March, but it's now under testing. We really see the value of it now being digital, especially with what we're going through worldwide. And then there's like co-design tools that we make sure people are not just giving us data, but also are able to design and put their idea physically, spatially, using block by block, which I'm gonna touch upon after. And there's testing of other tools that we do, like mixed reality and augmented reality, where it's a good way to show decision makers how change could look like. And all of this, in a way, once we do that, we're also contributing to reporting back on SDG 11.7, which is what governments are mandated to do in a way. And when I say using engagement tools, I don't mean, there's different levels of participation, it could be just informing, or it could be just consulting, but it could be also initiating and working together from the onset. And this is what we do, basically. We make sure the engagement process covers the life cycle of a project. And what you see in the middle are the people that we bridge the dialogue with: local authorities, civil society, and experts. Of course, there's lots of other people who could be involved: academia, associations, NGOs, and so on. But the idea is how to make sure there's a dialogue between at least those three main parties in a way. If communities are engaged, but local authority is not willing to make a change, then we risk not having implementation. If civil society and local authorities are engaged, but experts were not involved, then we risk a top-down design that does not really translate the needs of the community in a proper way. And so our life cycles go through from data gathering to analyzing to co-designing to implementing and evaluating, basically. And there's a different percentage of participation from the three. Sometimes it could be that they are observers, sometimes they could be active participants, and so on. And within this process, different tools are used. And this is why I say with and by the community, because it's not the expert who are gathering the data. It's really volunteers from the community reaching out to champions on the ground, reaching out to through call for interest of who wants to change their cities to come on board and help us gather data through surveys, through digital surveys, where there are a set of questions really spatially on condition and so on, but some questions are on perception, are on how they perceive the space. And this is sometimes really hard to capture the perception of people. And what you see in blue are a set of digital tools that we have been using, especially now. When COVID happened, we were skeptical of how are we gonna make sure participation still happens? Are we gonna just freeze until and not do any activity until lockdowns unfold or until cities open up? And this is why we really started to shift to digital, making sure that people from home can still contribute through brainstorming sessions, that from home they can answer surveys or give us their opinions and so on. And this is where block by block also came as one of the model of participation that was useful during this time. And I'll try to explain it in a way that's not really on gamification, because I know it relates to block 4 of this conference, but more on how this model of participation helps transform cities when engaging communities. And this picture, I just want to highlight, it's from Kosovo this year. You can see people are still with the mask. Just happy to show it. So for you who don't know what block by block is, and again, this is in a way touching upon one of the models of participation. It's we started in 2012 with Mojang, the creators of the game Minecraft, to engage youth in participation, because in majority of the cities that we work in, youth make up the majority of the population. And if we don't find a language that they can understand, then we risk to exclude them from decisions around their environment. So this is how the idea started. And in 2015, Microsoft acquired Mojang, and we created together the Block by Block Foundation. And the main aim of the foundation is to really implement public spaces through the use of Minecraft as participation tool. We do every year a call for proposal to support cities to implement those spaces and the engagement process, but we also have external requests that we also support from other interested parties. And the methodology started just by phase 2. The idea started just to do in Minecraft as a co-design workshop where we put, we have a sampling size of the society, we bring them on board, we help them learn Minecraft, which is very easy, and start telling us where spatially, what they want, what are the challenges, and how they wanna change their environment in a 3D visualization way. But throughout the years, we have consolidated the approach into a more robust, let's say, process. And we've included something that comes before and the implementation that goes all the way to construction. And I want to touch upon two steps that I always stress on and find them really critical in the process. One is the financial planning. It's really important that we secure budget before we engage communities. So to make sure that at least a phase 1 of the construction happen, or a phase 1 of the intervention implementation happens. And the reason being is in the previous year, we were asked by a local government X to support them in a Minecraft co-design workshop. And then we've done that, we had the priorities of the communities, and then after that, nothing happened. And that's because the municipality really did not secure budget or did not think of that prior. And so keeping the momentum going is really important to make sure those people who you invited can come back for future engagement processes. If we do not keep the momentum, then we risk this, like the trust of the community in the work or why you're bringing them on board, especially that engagement processes sometimes take time, time of the people who are coming. I don't know, maybe leaving their jobs to come for 2 days, or the school, unless you're doing it on a weekend, but you get the idea. And the second step is the expert design studio, which also links to the validation. And this is really important, and we always invite experts, whether they're architects, planner, engineer, landscape, or artists, you name it, are also present in the workshop, so they really understand what the community is trying to say. So to avoid this like top-down design from their end, and make sure what they're proposing is actually in translation of their needs into more technical drawings. And the validation meeting is where we're able to spread this to a wider audience, because in our workshops, there is a sampling representation of the community, but again, you cannot invite everyone. And this is where in the validation meeting, you're able to reach out through social media, through, I don't know, town hall consultation or other modalities that your city might have, so that the wider community could be informed of what's happening and can have a say as well in this basically. And what you see on your right side is kind of the process of how transformation is happening when the communities are involved. And these are the people who were also engaged in the workshop. So oftentimes we see that at least there's lots of people who just voluntarily come and say, we want to also help in, I don't know, painting or removing waste or cleaning the area and so on. So it's really nice to get this kind of like, let's say, feeling. And this is just to say that it's really important to use the right tool for the right, let's say, audience. And Minecraft is a good way, like as a 3D visualization, to understand the environment. And for people who are not expert, who do not understand maps and do not understand technical drawings, to be able to engage effectively. Because sometimes if you bring them to design workshop using the sophisticated, I would like to say them sexy maps that we are expert find them, they're not gonna be active participants because they're not gonna fully be aware of what the drawings are saying. And so understanding the target audience and who are we engaging is really important to understand which model of participation we should use for those groups. And so for every, I mean, sometimes it's a mixed group of people coming together in workshops, but if we're working on child-friendly cities, then we're engaging with kids, or if we want to bridge social cohesion between immigrants or refugees and host community, then we also bring those two on board. Or if we're working towards a gender-sensitive city or working on gender-sensitive design, then or safety for women and girls, then we're engaging. So it's more like a focus group engagement as well. Persons with disability and also older persons. How can we make sure our workshops are also friendly for this targeted group by bringing them, let's say, through a dialogue with younger generation that can help them visualize their ideas on the tool. And so we have implemented. Sorry?
I think we're going to have to. Can you just roll it up now? There's a few questions I'd like to get to you from participants. So if you could just try to.
Okay, I'll just do this and one. Yeah. So yeah, I'm saying, sorry. I'm saying, yeah, so we've been doing this, let's say, using the approaches in 75 cities. And they always ask us, like, UN Habitat supports local government, but how do local government push it forward and scale? And this is really where our normative products, our dissemination of knowledge, what works and what doesn't work in certain contexts, but also the toolkits that we have, the step-by-step approach of how you do certain engagement on city level or on let's say, the block by block or site level can also, yeah, so we can train them on how they can push forward this and have more meaningful participation. I'll just leave it at this page, and you can watch the video to see the case study then. So I don't take much time.
Okay, thank you, Christelle. There were a couple of questions actually. I just wanted to encourage people to use the Q&A, so I thought we should address them. One of them we've already addressed. It was Emil's that wrote that how do you actually then, when you leave the project, ensure that the local authority or somebody takes over? This might be the community, it might be a school, it might be a residents association, but how do you encourage that?
Yeah.
And the other question was, do you select areas which are full of conflict, or do you select areas which are kind of the low-hanging fruit, the easy ones to do? Because actually this creation of a soft environment also gives the opportunity to work with conflict resolution by inclusion, by actually these processes. So how do you approach this question, the question of longevity? How do you make sure that projects actually have an afterlife? Who takes responsibility? And does this actually create precedents for new ones? And how do you manage conflict?
Okay. So in terms of scalability, I touched upon that through our normative products or toolkits and the step-by-step approach. Whenever we're supporting cities, we make sure that they're also being capacitated on how to push this methodology forward. We also understand what are their capacities, who are involved, who are the personnel working there, but who could be also supporter from associations on the ground that they can also support local municipality. Sometimes we often think municipalities have to do everything. But I mean, especially in the global south, this is really tricky, and it's almost like too ambitious sometimes to rely on municipalities. So really bringing those champions on board, those people who really want to make change. For example, in Dandora and in Nairobi, through a small competition of providing $1,000 to the winner, we managed to upgrade at least 15 pocket spaces in the area. And that's because the champions on the ground mobilized residents. They collected money within themselves to upgrade the public space. So sometimes you have to rely on those people as well. In terms of selection of the public spaces, there's so many ways we go about it. If we're doing a citywide assessment and we understand the city, then we know where interventions need to happen, because we know if the city's priority is to increase diversity or to increase comfort in public space or to increase safety, through the assessment, we know where those spaces are. And then we would recommend a series of pocket spaces for those municipalities, and it's up to their priorities to push it forward. Especially that we're talking with public land, which is in the hands of the local authorities. So at the end, you're like balancing, you need to do this, but also you have your priorities, which one you want to go with. Yep. So it's not necessarily that we just go for the soft spaces. No, sometimes we work with really hard context, especially, let's say, if we're working with refugees and host communities. Yep. How do you convince host communities that what you're doing is not just for the benefit of the refugees, because sometimes they have this. So it really depends on the context, let's say. Yeah.